Hey guys, welcome back to Vinceville Customs. So today we're going to repair a Bowen Designs Scorpion statue that was broken off at the ankle and a little bit of a crack at the tail up here. Now, the tail isn't as bad as as it could have been, but it's better to fix it while you can before it gets worse. But the ankle right here is cracked pretty bad. This is actually a clean break. We'll get a little bit closer and I'll show you. There's no metal rod up this ankle or anything, so that's a kind of a problem, but we want to get this, situated with a rod and then go from there. Now, with this type of a break in this repair, it's better to repair the ankle first, get them situated here, and then worry about the tail. Because if you put too much pressure up here and you're trying to work on this and you're putting all pressure down here, we might crack the other ankle, which we don't want to do. What I'm thinking is going on, like when I try to push this ankle back, it's not really the weight that's holding it. It feels like maybe what happened is when this was casted up, these feet went into this base really tight and it really wanted to kind of push forward. So I think maybe when the collector pulled it out of the box or moved it, just some pressure in the wrong way just snapped this ankle. So what we really want to do is we want to Dremel out the back of this and put a metal rod in there with some magic scope. And then after that's cured up the next night, we can go in there with Aves and rebuild this area and then touch it up with paint after sanding it. So the other part is the tail. Now, I'll get in closer to the ankle so you guys can see what's going on though. So you can kind of see it's a really clean break. You can see how it wiggles. So what I'll do is I'm going to go in the garage. We're going to Dremel out the back of this. I'll show my Dremel tool and what we're going to do. We'll get this nice and chopped up as best as we can. We'll get that situated. Now, as far as the tail, it's actually kind of breaking and it's not actually broken. I'm not really sure if you'll be able to see it in camera too well. But there is a crack right here, and then what it is, it's cracked around this black line. So what's going to happen is once the ankle's situated, what I'll do is I'll get some, I'll get my Dremel tool and I'll Dremel around here, and I'll Dremel around there, and I'll rebuild sort of like this area with Aves, sand it down, and then touch it all up with paint. I think I repaired one of these a long time ago for someone. I don't think I did a video on it or something. I might have, but I know I repaired one of these a long time ago for someone where this same thing happened, but it was actually more of a break, and I kind of had to rebuild like a whole section. As far as paints go, I can already tell that you can use Createx Pearlized Green with some Createx Pearlized Gold, and you can kind of match this up as best as possible. It's always hard to kind of match metallics from factories because a lot of their metallics sometimes are almost like car metallics or close to it. So it's kind of hard to match up, but with this green and the pearlized green and yellow, I can match it up as best as I can. As far as the gloves and boots, it's kind of like the pearlized green, but with a little bit darker green mixed into it, so I can match it up. So all it is, we're repairing this ankle, we're repairing this tail, and we're done, and it's pretty much ready to go. So I'm going to go get set up in the garage. I'll show you the Dremel bit that I'm going to use. We're going to Dremel this out. Then we'll come back in here. We'll get a rod in here with some magic scope. We'll let it sit overnight. Next day we'll patch up the ankle, and then after that we're going to go and work on the tail. So this is something that instead of trying to rush it all in one day and cause a lot more issues, it's better to just kind of do one section at a time. And that's the way I like to work projects, because I've learned in the past it's better to have maybe like 5 or 6 projects on your shelf, so this way you could kind of sculpt this, repair this, paint that, and do that in a day than trying to rush one project in one day. So we'll go get set up, we'll get this going and repair. So we're all set up in the garage. I have my Dremel tool, got my safety glasses, we got Scorpion on here. My shop vac is over here. I'll grab the hose in a second. Always make sure you wear safety goggles whenever you're working on this stuff because if something breaks off, it goes into your eye or dust or anything like that, you're in a world of hurt. So just always be safe with that. Now this is my go-to Dremel bit tool. This is a tile cutting bit. Now when you buy these brand new, these teeth on this are super sharp. So if you don't have a good grip on your item and you're not used to doing this, and you go to say you just want to take off a little area, if you don't have a good grip, it'll just go right up your statue. Or like if you're working on a face and you wanted to take off like a mask or something and you're not careful, it'll grind right through it. So a brand new tile bit is very, very sharp. So if you feel that it's too sharp and you want to whittle it down, if you have a piece of metal or like a hammer, or something, what you can do is you can kick it on and you can kind of just like grind it down real quick and it'll get a little bit soft. So this bit, I've had it for probably like a year and a half now. Because sometimes they do break and it is actually worn down, but even when it's worn down, it'll still cut through resin like butter. So it's a really great item, but make sure you don't understand that. Now I have my shop vac next to me. I'll grab the hose and I'll have like the shop vac over here and I'll do it. I'm so used to holding the shop vac in a certain way with, you know, cutting stuff that, you know, it's just kind of natural to me now, where if you're kind of new to this and you want to repair it, you got to get kind of comfortable pose, because you want to suck up the resin dust as much as possible in the shop vac. You don't want it to go all over your house. You don't want it to go into your, you know, breathing it in, so make sure you wear a mask too. I always like to do all my chopping and sanding in the garage because I don't want it going through the house. So I always do everything out in the garage here. If you are working on an item too, just as like a tidbit, like say you're working on a hand, maybe the hand's probably like this big and there's fingers, but you wanted to kind of Dremel something off. Be very, very careful if you're using a shop vac next to you, because if you accidentally cut that finger or break it, or that finger kind of snaps off, it goes into your shop vac and you lose it. So there's plenty of times in the past where, you know, I was getting into this hobby and I was doing stuff like that. I would have to rip open the shop vac and go through all that dust just to find a broken part that got sucked into the vacuum. So that's kind of a little word of advice. If you are really worried about it, you can grab like some screen from like, you know, a door, and you can wrap it around the front of your shop vac, so this way it won't suck. It'll suck in the dust, but it won't suck in anything that gets like broken off. So what I'm gonna do now is I'll get my you know, set up on my hand. We'll just kind of, you know, I won't grind it out with a lot of noise, because the shop vac and the drum will get very noisy. So we'll just throw some music and it'll give you guys an idea on how I hold it, and also how I kind of, you know, Dremel up an area to fill in with a rod. Okay, so as you can see, we Dremeled this out. We got a nice chunk in there gone. This is a metal rod, brass. I have a lot of these long rods. You know, this is just one that was in there, was kind of already cut down. So what I need to do is kind of cut this down a little bit so it fits in there. I use brass a lot because of a couple reasons. One, it's easier to cut, it's fairly strong for statues, and plus it's not steel. If you put steel in stuff, you can, like nails if you want, or if you have metal rods, it's fine. But you know, I work on a lot of stuff. Sometimes I chop magnets, sometimes, you know, that magnet dust gets everywhere. So if you're painting up an item and you got like a steel rod in there, and just say I go in the garage and do something, maybe some of that magnet dust might get caught on there. So I don't really like to use you know, steel rods going around the items if I can help it. I usually like to use brass. So, you know, you can use like wire hangers, you get brass thin rods all over the place. So whatever you like to do, it's up to you. This right here is two-part Magic Sculpt. For those who may be new to my videos, you mix A and B together in equal amounts, which I already did. I got enough right here. I use Magic Sculpt for stuff like in here. This is going to help build like what you can think of like the skeleton. You know, we're rebuilding the skeleton inside the meat there, and that'll help secure it. And then I have A's, which we'll go over A's later when we're ready to work on that. And then we also have glue. You might see me throughout the video, and maybe I'll use some of this gel glue. This is great for your statues. So if you're a statue collector and you break pieces and you don't want to have it repaired, or you don't know how to repair it yourself, but you're happy with just gluing it back together, the BSI gel glue is absolutely amazing. It doesn't run, it's really not that heavy with fumes, and it doesn't really cloud up your items. Like if you use super glue and this tail broke over here and you glue it together with super glue, if you're not careful, that white fumes go up your item. This stuff really won't do that, but you want to have yourself Insta-Set anyway, or Zip Kicker, either or. What it is when you put the glue on there and you put the tail, if you can do it yourself or you have somebody hit it with a couple drops or a spray of the Insta-Set, it sets your glue in a second, and then you don't have to worry about any bleeding. This stuff won't ruin your paint or anything like that. Just let it dry naturally and you're good to go. So what I'm doing right here now is in the ankle. I would love to have a little bit of glue to kind of patch it to keep it there, but sadly, you know, I can't do that. But it is split enough. So the good thing about this glue, gel glue, what we'll do is we'll open this up here too. Now be careful with your Insta-Set though. You don't want to have this in your hand and get Insta-Set on here, then you clog this up. Even the fume from the Insta-Set can actually dry this up for you faster. So make sure you kind of keep these separate. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to squeeze a little bit of gel in between the crack through this hole right here. So as you can see, we have that hole right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically squeeze some gel between the crack a little bit. Not a lot, just enough. Just kind of get it in there. And then put your cap back on. Make sure you kind of get some of that off. The BSI gel glue is great, but it will clog on you if you're not careful. So basically I'm pushing the ankle together, and we're going to grab some of this Insta-Set. Now my Insta-Set squirt bottle has gone to hell, it always does. And you just throw a couple drops in there. And basically it just sets up right away. So basically I squeezed enough in there, and the resin is sort of touching resin with a little bit of the glue. So it's kind of not wiggling, it's not set. Of course, you know, we don't want to snap it off again, it could snap. So be a little bit careful, and basically you can kind of just wipe it down if you want. So there's a lot of the Insta-Set that's in there right at the moment. Kind of get that dried up a little bit and go. So alright, so I'm going to let this dry for about, you know, a couple minutes. You know, just go grab something to drink, let this dry up a little bit. And then what we'll do is we'll come back, we'll get the rod in there with some of the Magic Sculpt, we'll put him aside for the night, and then we come back tomorrow and we start working out the ankle. Okay, so it's been a few. I kind of hit it with a blow dryer real quick, plus, you know, I hit it with the paper towel again, so the, you know, Insta-Set stuff is all pretty much dried up. So take your Magic Sculpt. This stuff works fine with water, you don't really need anything else. And you take some Magic Sculpt and pretty much put it into where the bone would be, and that's going to be where the rod is too. So you just put, we're not going to put a whole lot in there, just enough. So if you got any kind of tool, kind of make sure you squeeze it in there. You don't want to just slap it in there and then not, you know, you want to try to get as much, make sure there's no air bubbles or anything like that. And pretty much there's not a lot on there, so it works out good. So now you grab your metal rod. I cut this down, just a simple wire cutter. Kind of break, you know, put this in there like so. Push it down a little bit more. Okay. And then just squeeze around Magic Sculpt around the rod. Sure it goes up that way too. Like I said, it doesn't need to be pretty because we're going to rebuild over this anyway with some A's, and we'll work on that tomorrow. If you want, and you have yourself a paintbrush, use it with a little water, and you can use a paintbrush to kind of squeeze it in and smooth it out. Now I don't use Magic Sculpt to really sculpt with. I use it for mostly stuff like this for the inside areas, you know, your skeleton repair, building an armature, but not really for like detailing, because I find it's a little bit difficult. But I find it's really, really super strong and works out great for doing something like this. So, kind of see how this looks, you know, from the side. There's a lot of meat missing, as you can see from there. And that'll all get filled in. So we're going to let this cure up for the night. Magic Sculpt takes about 6 to 8 hours. Yeah, kind of like 6 hours to 8 hours till it's like fully cured and ready to be sanded and painted. Usually in like about an hour and a half, it really starts getting tough and really hard to work with. But that's going to work out really well. It's going to be nice and durable. So let this sit up tonight. I go work on some other stuff. Come back tomorrow. What we'll do is we'll Dremel around the ankle a little bit because we want to start filling this in with A's and really secure it. And then we get this all buffed out and nice and ready for paint. And then we can start working on the tip. So this is Dremeled out now. And I just went back over it with that same Dremel tool that I went to the back of the piece. So this is really, you know, this is all secured. It's really tough. It's, you know, it's going to work out great. So now I'm going to rebuild this ankle. So this is A's Fix It Sculpt, A's Epoxy Sculpt, and their Safety Solvent. Safety Solvent I use to smooth out their stuff, clean your brushes, soften up the Fix It or the A's or whatever. It's really great product. It's well worth investing. Other people use other stuff, you know, like maybe water, which I suggest you don't. I've talked to the owner of the company. He says you should not use water with the product. You can use alcohol, so I know some people do, but I don't. I mean, they make this Safety Solvent specifically for the product, and if you buy a big jug of it, it'll last you for a long time. So, A's Fix It Sculpt is great for like sculpting hair on items. Like, so whenever I'm sculpting hair on a character, I use to Fix It because it doesn't flop, bend. It sort of holds its form pretty well, you know, but when you freshly make it, it sort of still flops a little bit, but as it starts to kind of cure up a little bit faster than the A's Epoxy Sculpt, it holds its form pretty well. So this is regular Epoxy Sculpt. I get the color red. Basically, it's just red AU's epoxy. It's nothing special. I just find that the red is easier to see what I'm doing. Plus, when you sand it down in the garage, you can see the red dust everywhere, so it's a little bit easier to clean up and see. Plus, I find that the red's usually on sale a lot, which is really great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up a little bit of the Fix-It with the regular A's just because it'll give me like a pinkish, mixture, and it's a little bit easier to kind of see what I'm doing here, and this way it'll work out pretty well. So what I usually do is put my Fix-It in a safety solvent in little glass jars so I don't, waste it. I use paintbrushes to sculpt everything. A's products basically mix A and B together in equal amounts. I use it on all my customs and all my videos. It's really great for sculpting, customizing, because in 8 hours it cures as hard as a rock, just like regular, resin statue. You can sand it, prime it, paint it, and you're ready to go. If you want to sculpt from scratch, you could definitely use these products. It's just that it's, you got to work time with this stuff. You mix it up, you got about 3 hours before it starts to really kind of harden up to give you a lot of trouble, and then in 8 hours it's like hard as a rock. So you definitely can sculpt from scratch if you want to. If you're sculpting an item with clay or something and you want to break off a hand and resculpt the hand, you could definitely use this stuff. So it's a great product. So you'll see me use this throughout the rest of the video. I suggest you guys, if you're in a hobby or you want to start sculpting, check these products out. It's not like clay where you can sculpt with clay. You could put it on your shelf with a plastic bag overnight, come back the next day and then get back to work on it. And it's not like wax where you can heat up the wax and keep going. Like once this stuff is cured, it's as hard as a rock. So it's great for customizing, and that's why I like it. So I'm going to get this mixed up. Just, a little bit of the Fix-It, a little bit of the A's regular. It'll be a pinkish. I'll build out this ankle. As you can see, this thing is really nice and hard as a rock now. What I'll do is I'll try to, rebuild it to where the sculpt is. Next day, once it's cured up, I'll sand this down. We'll come back, and we can pretty much touch up with paint. But before we do the paint, we'll start working on a tail. Just got out of the garage and I sanded down the ankle. Went around as best as I could. It feels nice and smooth. I'll have to do a base coat of some kind of paint over it, which will probably be a Tamiya Chrome Silver. This will let me know if there's any cracks or some putty work I got to do and then sand it down. But for right now, we're good. I'll wait until I'm ready to paint everything. I also did Dremel out the tail. So you can see the rod is actually very close to the edge. It's not actually in the center. I think that's why it might have cracked. So what I did is I Dremeled all around the piece, wherever the crack was. Might be kind of hard to see, but most of the crack was right here, and you can see a little bit of that crack there. I don't want to go too far down, but what I'm going to do is I want to put a metal rod in here, I'm going to put a metal rod up there, and I'm going to use some of my A's Fix-It sculpt that I have. I would use, the Magic Sculpt if it was a little bit thicker and I can actually drum out more, but I'm afraid if I drum out too much it's gonna like not be lined up where it should be, so I want to keep it where it is. So I got enough A's Fix-It to go around to really hold it up. By putting a rod here and here, it'll be a little bit more durable. So I'll get a rod cut up, we'll put in the A's, we'll let this sit up overnight and cure, and then I could kind of fine tune it tomorrow, sand it down, and then we could touch up the paint. just got out of the garage and I sanded this down. So it took a little while to kind of get this back to where it should be. I can see now in the light there's a little bit of scratch in here, so what I need to go is back out to the garage with some fine sandpaper and buff this down a little bit. I think the ankle is pretty well ready to go, but we'll see. So at this point, what I like to do is, once it's pretty much buffed out and ready to start paint work, I like to use Tamiya Chrome Silver. It's a really great item to, like, you know, bond paints to, like, you know, repairs like this. Plus, we have pearlized green anyway, so a nice shiny metallic base with a little bit of pearlized green will help it pop out a little bit. Now, you can use like gray primer, white primer, black primer through an airbrush, through a rattle can, whatever you like to use. But the problem is you got to do a lot of layering of the pearlized color over it, where this is going to help you do it really well. Now, I don't overspray this. Now, you don't spray this on super thick and like have a really thick coating. Just spray it on lightly enough, just so you get a coating on there and you can see if there's any errors or anything you need to patch up. And then after that's done, we'll see if I need any of my Tamiya basic gray putty. I'll probably maybe have to putty up some edging or something. We'll see, maybe with the ankle as well. Let the putty dry for about a good 15 minutes or so. You can hit it with a blow dryer if you need to. Buff it out, and then do one more coat of the Tamiya Chrome Silver. Make sure everything's nice and smooth, and after that we just hit it with the greens and we'll be done. The Chrome Silver is on. There was only one spot over here that I actually need to touch up and a little spot over here. All in all, I did a good job with buffing it down, so I really didn't have like a lot of scratches or have to do any putty work. Same thing with the ankle, so that worked out pretty well. So for getting this sort of like, you know, pearlized green look, but it's got sort of a gold tint to it, I have Createx pearlized green, and I also have metallic gold from Createx. So this will get as close as I possibly can. Now, as for the boots, it's basically pearlized green with just like, I guess, a black mixed into it. So I'll be able to kind of match that up fairly well. That's pretty much it. I mean, there's really not much more to it. Except with Createx though, it doesn't really, like, once you spray Createx on, it doesn't really cure that well on its own. You gotta sort of heat set it. So after I spray it down, I'll hit it with a blow dryer and sort of kind of really heat set it. And I'll let this sit for, you know, at least a day or so. And then I'll try to match like this shininess to it. So I'll probably have to hit it with some kind of a clear coat and get that look back. The boots and hands are sort of like a satin, almost dulled down pearlized look. So I'll try to have to match that as well. But for right now, I'm just going to match up the main colors, let it sit overnight, hit it with the blow dryer and everything, and then come back tomorrow and see what I need to do. I'll have to, you know, go in with a paintbrush and create these black lines again. And then see if I need to do anything else. But it's fairly straightforward. It's the next day, and what I need to do is kind of like give this a little bit more of a sheen, like the factory did over in here. So I have a Spaztec Ultra Shine Clear Coat. It's 90109. I like to use this for a lot of my stuff now. I could use the car paint, but I think it would be better just to use this stuff. This will give a nice sheen, kind of copy this other stuff, and then after that I could go in with some black line paint and you know, work out those lines. As for the foot, I think all I'm going to use is some satin varnish, which is from Mecca Varnish Vallejo. I'll just use some satin on the foot there, and that'll kind of match up the other areas pretty well. Give it a nice coat, and then that's pretty much it. So let me hit this with the clear coat. I'll off camera, I'll put the line work back on the tail. I'll, you know, do the satin on the foot, and then after that we'll come back and show you the final look on the repairs, and it'll be all finished. Did my final touch-ups, and he is all finished up. After I did do the gloss coat, you know, the clear coat up here, it was a little too bright, so I kind of missed just a tiny bit of hint of that satin from Vallejo, and it just dulled it down enough to make it feel like it's all from the factory. So other than that, we are done. It looks pretty well. Try to match up the colors best as possible. Ankle looks great. After I did the satin on there, it basically looks like the other ankles and gloves. And he's all patched up. So hopefully you guys liked the video. Hopefully it gave you some tips on if you ever, you know, have an old Bowen or statue you want to repair and you don't want to go out and buy a new one. You can just kind of fudge it and just touch up some paint and you're pretty much repaired. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be back with some more videos.